There's something wrong with this offensive scheme. You know what? There's something wrong with this one as well. Do you know what it is? No, it's not the fact that Notre Dame and Michigan did not meet in 1946. Now, the problem is that the backfields are wrong. Okay, I feel like a total geek for knowing this, but it's important. Let me give you some background first. After taking a hiatus from Action PC football for over a year, I've decided to come back in a blaze of glory. I purchased the most recent version of the game as soon as it came out. I'm going to play with the 1946 college football season to begin with. This is a homebrew disc that was created a few years ago. I'm going to manage Notre Dame just for the fun of it. That means that there's a lot of Johnny Lujack in my future. This isn't your ordinary replay, however. I've thrown in a couple twists. Look, college football seasons tend to be kind of boring. Most big teams play a bunch of patsies, followed by maybe one or two big games in any given season. Let's look at Notre Dame's 1946 season, for example. The eventual national champions famously played Army in the game of the century. They started off against Illinois, who won the Big Nine, and played USC at the end of the year. Iowa was ranked when Notre Dame faced them. But Pitt, Purdue, Navy, Northwestern, Tulane, yeah, none of these teams were any good. And Notre Dame wound up being national champions. You know, I've talked about this problem before. I don't really like the current system, but I like the current system for choosing national champions much better than the system that we had before. The thing is, I really want to see a system where the players decide this on the field. And so I created this realignment. It's simple. Each team plays against each team in its division twice for a 14-game season. We then have the winners of each division face each other in the playoffs. Now, this system means that I'm only going to load 64 teams, which will help with processing time and which will also make it easier to follow the division races. But it also means that some teams are going to be missing, so remember that ahead of time. Loading 64 teams also means that we're going to have even schedules. And yeah, I know that it's not realistic to have 14-game seasons in college football, but the thing is, I don't have to worry about finals, tests, students not being on campus. None of that matters to me. Now, this took longer to set up than it should have. Action PC Football's team importing system is broken. You can only do one team at a time. The automatic schedule generator is even worse. I finally created my own schedule using an algorithm that I found on Wikipedia. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let me explain to you why the backfields that come on this user-created disk are incorrect. Here we have video from the Notre Dame-Purdue game. Notre Dame is in the dark jerseys. See how they're lined up? That's the T formation. Okay, it's time for a history lesson. There was an important rule change in college football before the 1945 season. Players no longer had to stand 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage to attempt a forward pass. Now, have you ever wondered why teams didn't tend to pass during the first few decades after the forward pass was originally legalized? Well, now you know why. Allowing players to attempt forward passes at any point behind the line of scrimmage opened up the passing game. It also made offensive schemes other than the single wing viable. Okay, now most of us, including most of the people watching this video, do not remember the old days of single wing football. In fact, I really strongly doubt that there are many living people today that remember any of that. You would have to have been a fan of football, NFL or college before World War II to remember what it was like when everyone was running the single wing. This really was a long, long time ago. Now, 1946 is fascinating. Some teams use the T formation, but others use the single wing. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about this. There are people who claim that everybody went to the T formation after the Chicago Bears demolished Washington in the 1940 NFL title game. The truth, however, is that the rules were different in the pro game. The T was not quite as dominant at that time in the college game because of the passing restriction that I just described. There was more, of course. Single wing formations tend to work particularly well for squads with fewer players, especially when players might have to play both offense and defense. And that's one of the reasons why you still see single wing offenses in use in high school. Now, unlimited substitution was a thing in college football in 1946. The dawn of World War II had brought with it the new and exciting world of college football and limited substitution. That meant that teams could platoon instead of having the same players play both offense and defense. But, of course, old habits die hard. As we'll see, the biggest stars of college football in 1946 were indeed two-way players. The single wing also works very well if the player is calling the play and not the coach. Part of the reason is because there are tons of different variations of plays that you can call all with the same setup and the same formation, depending upon what you see on the field. And here is where action PC football is extremely inaccurate and unrealistic. You see, back in 1946, plays were called by the players on the field, not by the coach on the bench. Football archaeology, which is indisputably the best source on this subject, reports that coaches weren't even allowed to talk with their own players during timeouts until 1967. So yeah, you could say that the sport of college football has changed a little bit over the years. Anyway, we're not going to worry too much about that, but I do want to get the backfield right. Notre Dame used the T formation. Ironically, Michigan used the Notre Dame box. That's right. See how they line up in the T and then shift? That is the Notre Dame box. The person who created this disc apparently thought that all teams had moved to the T by 1946. As you can see here, that clearly was not the case. Alright, I'm really looking forward to this project, even if I've had to spend some time to fix up a couple things first. We are going to dive deep into the world of college football. I'm talking about the old world of college football, the world that no longer exists. We're also going to explore things more fully in action PC football, including taking a deeper look and seeing what is possible, what isn't possible, and trying to figure out what the limits of the game are. So I really hope you'll join me on this.